Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie, and we're getting ready for episode 4 of Game of Thrones. So for my bonus video this week, I actually wanted to travel into the past and pick, one of the really big characters that we haven't learned a lot about yet and just talk about him, namely the Bloodraven. Since the show kind of glosses over and changes a lot of things though, this video is just kind of meant to fill in some of those gaps. In case you have read any of the books, please be careful whenever you write stuff in the comments, just add spoiler tags. If you're finding me for the first time, I'm just doing weekly bonus videos before each episode airs. Be sure to subscribe to get everything, and leave me suggestions for extra things you think I should do videos on in the future. So let's get started. The Bloodraven is not actually his real name. His real name is Brynden Rivers, so for most of this video, that's what I'm going to call him, just because it's a little bit easier. Most of the early part of his life revolved around the Blackfyre Rebellion. That was the Great War started when Aegon Targaryen IV legitimized all of his bastards and gave one of them the famous Targaryen sword named Blackfyre. The person who was supposed to become king flipped out, civil war erupted, as it tends to do in Westeros. Interestingly enough though, that Blackfyre sword that was given to the bastard that belonged to Aegon Targaryen was only one of two famous Targaryen swords. The other one belonged to his older sister, Visenya Targaryen. It was called Dark Sister. That was given to Brynden Rivers. After all the Blackfyre drama, one of the bastards actually survived and went on to found the Golden Company. Remember how in episode 3 Sir Davos talked about maybe using them on the show? That's going to be like a whole different bonus video I'll do. It just gives you an idea of how people in the story are connected across time and space. Just like Brynden Rivers, he lived for a long time, so his history crosses across a lot of the history of Westeros up to where the show is right now. He's most notable for his appearance. He does only have one eye, and his ability to use magic. Most of his peers during his time in Westeros thought of him as a sorcerer. They didn't trust him. Like Sir Davos might think of Melisandre as a witch. But his abilities, his power set included glamoring, skin changing, and green sight. Glamoring is similar to what you saw Jaqen H'ghar do whenever he changed his face. But because we really don't know how he did that, I'm going to say that what Jaqen H'ghar and the Faceless Ones do to change their appearance is different from glamoring. But essentially they both involve changing your face. Skin changing we have seen on the show quite a bit, and we actually got that cool first person shot of Bran, when he was inside Summer while he was stalking prey. Green sight is mostly referred to as the ability to have visions of the future, like being a prophet. Some magic you can learn, but green sight is something you have to be born with, like Bran. Just to give you an idea of how rare it is to have that ability, it's only like one person in 100,000 that's born with it, so it's super rare. So you're starting to understand why a lot of people thought that Brynden Rivers was like an evil sorcerer and didn't trust him. He had all of these abilities, and in addition to that, he held a lot of really powerful offices. Plus there's the fact that he also got Visenya's ancestral blade, Dark Sister. Remember how much of a big deal it was whenever Tywin melted down Ned Stark's Valyrian blade and gave one to Jaime and one to Joffrey? Everyone is jealous of someone who possesses a Valyrian blade, and has magic. So traveling all the way back to the Blackfyre Rebellion, Brynden Rivers' half-brother was the rightful Targaryen heir, so he sided with the Loyalists, so whenever they ended up winning, he got a spot on the small council. Eventually, he became Master of Whispers. Right now on the show, that's what Varys' job is. It's a lot like being a spy master, master of information. That's what Varys is talking about every time he says, a little bird told me something. So again, you can kind of see why people did not trust Brynden Rivers. People really hate Varys on the show, and he doesn't even have magic like Brynden had. He went on to become Hand of the King, but because for some reason that job is cursed, he ended up getting thrown in the Black Cells because the Targaryen king at the time completely hated him. Remember, the Black Cells is essentially that place underneath the Red Keep where the king throws people that he just wants to forget about. He ended up rotting in there for a long time, but remember whenever Maester Aemon told Jon Snow about how he joined the Night's Watch, he was actually the brother of another Targaryen king, Aegon V. Maester Aemon's story is like a whole other bonus video, and there's a lot going on with that because he was originally supposed to be king himself. But while Maester Aemon was growing up, and until the time he went to the Wall, Brynden Rivers was still rotting down in the Black Cells. He was still alive. So whenever Aemon went to the Wall, Brynden Rivers was taken out of the Black Cells and sent with him to the Night's Watch. Brynden, obviously being really old at this time, ended up becoming Lord Commander, just like the Old Bear. Eventually, people just forgot about him, which is where the events on the show pick up. So hopefully episode 4 will explain, what the show is going to do with the character, whether or not it's going to be different, or like it is in the books. They change a lot of things, so we'll just have to wait and see. So what I'm really hoping is that George R. R. Martin's new book, World of Ice and Fire, which is a book that he's working on for later this year, is going to fill in a lot of gaps. It's going to be like the complete history of Westeros, or I guess as complete as it can be, with it not being like a, billion-page book. We can talk more about that whenever he releases it. One of the fun things about Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire is that there are so many things you could literally spend all your time talking about it. If you've read the Dunk and Egg books or the comic books, Brynden Rivers was actually Hand of the King while it was going on, but he's not really part of those stories. There is also another really cool book that Martin has teased called Fire and Blood, and it's going to be the entire history of the Targaryen family from Valyria all the way to Daenerys. He's not going to write that until he's done with the last Ice and Fire books, but it'll fill in a lot of gaps too. But a big part of Brynden Rivers' life gets tied up, in this kind of overarching war between the Red God and the Great Other. So we need to talk a little bit about how magic intersects with those stories. The show has really just started to touch on the gods, using Melisandre's character to kind of explain a lot of things. But I'm really interested to see how the addition of the Green Seers and the Children of the Forest get tied up in all that. I kind of like to think of them, the Children of the Forest and the Green Seers, as like this neutral force, like nature, existing in between the two big gods. But it gets really complicated when you start talking about the supernatural forces in Westeros. That's kind of the way I think of the Bloodraven, as like this, third thing going on off to the side while you have White Walkers and Melisandre focusing on their war over on the other side. And while he's been off to the side here, the really cool thing is that he's really gotten to watch most of the history of Westeros since the Blackfire Rebellion. He's kind of been there as this, silent force off to the side. I think one of my other bonus videos is going to have to cover the Children of the Forest just because they also have green sight, and that's really where things pick up on the show. We'll probably have to wait to see how that plays out just because the books haven't even covered a lot of their history. One of the most fun things about, doing these bonus videos and doing research is that as you start doing research on one person, you end up having to do research on like 10 other people because, all the way from Aegon's conquest to where we are on the show right now is totally connected. And I guess it's just really a testament to George R. R. Martin and good story planning. But now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments below, what are you most excited to learn about on the show or in the books? Personally, I really like to learn more about the Children of the Forest. Later tonight, I'll be posting my episode review. Be sure to subscribe to get it, and leave me suggestions for future bonus videos. My next one is probably going to be on all the different tribes of the wildlings and how the show is treating them. So right now, you can click here to get my video for the episode tonight. I'll add the annotation as soon as I post it. And you can click here to get my, mega Season 4 playlist. I have like a ton of Game of Thrones videos, so in case you haven't seen any of them, you can just browse through and see what I've done. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys tonight. High fives.